Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the polka dot pair of underwear because you can't see what I'm doing with this dark fabric. So what I did on this pair is I just sewed up the side seams. Because I'm going to put a elastic in the top of this, I'm not going to finish these off. I'm just going to leave them like I did on the pink one. On this pink one here, I'm just going to leave them because by the time you put your bottom elastic in and your top elastic, it's fine. Okay, but what I did here was I put in my seam, and then I did a really close zigzag, a very small zigzag, and then I took my two elastics because they were sticking out so much. I know it's hard to see on this dark fabric, but I tacked them to the back of the underwear so they wouldn't be sticking out. So when I go to fold my elastic in the leg seams, I'm going to make sure that I turn my fabric the same direction. So before I do anything though, what I'm going to do with these underwear is I'm going to try them on my doll before I go any further, because if I need to make adjustments, I don't want to go through all of that work putting in the leg elastics, which is the hardest part of these, before I try them on my doll. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a gathering stitch across the crotch area here, and I'm going to try them on the doll for fit. I'm not going to do it on the polka dot because I already know how those are going to fit. So I'm just going to go to a gathering stitch, the biggest one. I've already changed my fabric over to a light colored thread for the polka dots. So let's just go ahead and run a seam across here. Okay, so let's just get out a doll and try these on, just to see how they look, because this is the first time I've made a pair of underwear with actual pair of underwear. I've always used fabric. So let me get out Dana, and we will try, get her hair out of her eyes, we will try these underwear on and see how they look. So this is the bikini pattern with actual pair of underwear with the elastic, using the existing elastic on the top of the underwear pattern. Okay, well, not bad. They're a little on the high side, but they fit pretty decently, and by the time I roll my legs up, I'll have a good fit around the, I'll have a really good fit around the, I was worried a little bit about the puckers in the bathing suit, but it's kind of cute. I kind of like it. I got some threads I need to cut off here. But yeah, I think they're very cute. So if you want bikini panties when you're making the existing underwear, using the existing underwear pattern, you want to probably cut a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch off of the pattern when you sew your underwear together, because if you do it the way I did it, you're going to get briefs. You're not going to get bikini underwear. You're going to get briefs. But they're very cute. Okay, real cute. Okay, so I've just got to take that gathering stitch out and put the leg elastic in, and then sew the crotch back up, and we have a pair of white polka dot underwear. Okay, so the next step is to, on these ones, when I have to put my own elastic in the top, the next step is to start with the elastic in the legs. So the same thing happened here. If you're a little off on your leg seam, just trim it. You don't have to worry too much about it, but if it's too far off, you can just trim it even. Nobody's going to even see it by the time you've got your elastic in. You just want to even it out a little bit, so that when you make your turns on your elastic, everything will lay flat. Okay, I'm going to shut the camera down and get a close-up so you can see exactly what I'm doing. because putting the elastic in the legs, like I say, is the hardest part of this whole series. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I got my camera down as close as I can pretty much get it. Okay, so here's half of that one strip of elastic that I cut in half. So I'm just going to stretch it out. You know, if you just want to use regular elastic, 1/8 of an inch elastic on these, you can. I don't think you're going to have any problem with it. But you're going to sew that elastic directly on. Well, you could probably sew it the same way. I'm going to show you how to sew it. Okay, so here's the underwear. This is the side seam. I'm going to fold this in half because I'm going to start my pinning on the side seam. So my first step is going to be to take this elastic strap and pin it, fold it over into the seam area, and then do one fold. Okay, so I've got it encased in the fold there. So I'm going to take my pins, I'm going to come up the back, and then I'm going to pin it back through. So I'm just catching that elastic in there as like a side, because I'm going to turn it one more time. And the easiest way to do it is it's so hard to try and pin these simultaneously, turning this way and then turning again. It's just so hard to do it that way. I tried it a couple times on those first couple underwears, and it just was just too hard. So I figured out that this is the easiest way for me to do it. You might find an easier way of doing it. I've tried sewing this on in one step to see if I could, sewing this onto the fabric and then turning it again, and that didn't work because it kept getting caught in my feed dogs. So this is basically the easiest thing I found, the easiest way I could do to figure out how to do this. So there's that. And this is the tedious part, okay? So even though you'll have a little bit of leftover plastic on either side, that's fine. It'll just help you when you go to sew it on the sewing machine. You'll cut that off, though, before you actually sew the crotch. Okay, so there's my front crotch seam. So see how I've got that little edge there? That's fine. It doesn't matter that it wouldn't match, because even if I was going to sew this without any elastic, it's still going to make that same shape. Okay, so now that you've got that done, you're going to do the same thing on the other side. And if you find out you didn't put your elastic in the middle and you don't have enough, you're going to have to start all over. But I just like to start in the middle, because it just lets that, because you're going to have to pull that pull that fabric a little bit to stretch it into the right shape, and it just seems easier to me to start from the middle and work your way out. So this is the tedious part of these things. I thought they'd be so simple. You can just zip these up, but you really, if you want a nice looking pair of underwear, you really need to take your time pinning this down. Okay, so make sure that you're going all the way out to the edge of that that's the back crotch. So you want to make sure you go all the way out back to that back crotch. Put your pin in, out the back, and I think one more will do it. That one wasn't right. In, out. Like I said, if you can find an easier way to do this, let me know, because I'm sure there's an easier way, but like I say, I've tried. Okay, so now you've got that pinned. See how we've got that pinned there? We've got it only pinned with one fold. So now what we're going to do is we're going to leave these pins in, and we're going to pin it. We're going to do the second fold. So whichever is easier for you, whether inside out works easier or not, it's up to you. So just go ahead and take your pins and turn them over, and that will give you your second fold. So leave your pins in until you put in a few, leave the first pins in until you pin down a few of the second ones. They should just flop right over unless they got stuck on the front on something. But this is keeping your first fold in the right location. So like I said, this is a little tedious. But it's so cute when you're finished, and it does look like it's professionally done. You know, you can actually make, with this kind of technique, you can make your own, if you have babies and you need diaper covers, you can make the cutest little diaper covers using this same technique. What I would do is just cut one of the diaper covers up if you don't have a pattern, and then you can make them as pretty as you want and match all your little baby outfits. Oh, it'd be adorable. You can put the flounces on the back of the underwear. There's just so many things you can do. Because anything you can do for dolls, you can do for little girls and babies. Okay, so let's see how that looks. See, I've got that little puff right there. Probably would want to try and straighten that out a little bit. To see that, but once I sew it down, it'll probably be okay. So do you see what I did? Now I could go ahead and take those original pins out, because we're not going to need those when we sew on the sewing machine. That was just to hold our elastic in place when we went to do the sewing. Okay, so I lost that last one. But see what I mean? Trying to get that to stay in and turn at the same time is just difficult. Okay. I could probably use another pin here. That was where I got that little pucker. Secure this end piece. Okay, this is the tedious stuff. You're probably going, oh, is she ever going to finish? Okay, so there we go. So that's going to be leg number 1. Looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to take the sewing machine off of the table, because otherwise it'll bounce all around when I try to sew it. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I've got the camera set as close as I can without it bouncing all over the place. So we've got my pins in, so now I'm going to set my machine for a zigzag. This is factory setting right now. I'm going to increase it a little bit. I'm just going to add a couple to the length and a couple to the width. But you're just going to have to play with your machine and find out what works best for you. What I found is just adding a couple clicks to the sewing machine, which in your case would probably just be a number, or unless you have an electronic machine like this one, it'll be the same as mine, so just add a couple clicks. Okay, so let's just zigzag. Okay, take your pins out because you don't want to sew over your pins. Okay, so where I'm sewing is right. Okay, see where my. Let me see if I can get this close. Here is my pressure foot. I've got the edge of the fold lined up against the inside edge of the inner ledge of that pressure foot. And as I zigzag, it's going to catch this fold, and the second stitch is actually going into the fabric itself without the fold. So it's like one in, one out, one in, one out. So one in the fold, one outside of the fold. And what I've noticed is you need to remove the pins before they hit the pressure foot, because that puts drag on your fabric, and you don't want that. I'm using the same size needle, the 9014 that I used on the t-shirts. It's jersey. It's a needle for knits. Okay, let me get these needles out. Okay, so here's the curve. If you're going to get puckers in here, this is probably where it's going to happen. That pink one, I pulled it a little too much, and I got a little bit of too much stretch in one area. So I'm not pulling anything, I'm just going with the flow of the sewing machine. And if there's any drag, I'm just lifting up my pressure foot. Okay, so we're here towards the end. I'm going to do a couple back spaces. Okay. Well, let's see what it looks like. Okay, so that is, see if you can see that, that is the leg stitching on the underwear. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. I'm not going to do it on camera, so you don't have to wait for it. But then when we get together I'll come back and when it's time to put the crotch area in, because this is going to be folded up, this is going to be folded up, so you're going to have to line these edges up to match your edges on each side. So you might end up with a bigger seam than, I didn't cut that very well. You might end up with a bigger seam than 1/4 of an inch to match up your edges here on the bottom. So what I did is I, see how I went up there and then I did a zigzag and trimmed it down. I could tack this down to the back so it will lay flat if I wanted to, but you know, I probably should have, but I didn't. But that's something you can do if you want to do that on your crotch. But you just want to line up your crotch, so you may end up using more than that 1/4 of an inch seam in the crotch seam. So not a problem. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I'll be back when I finish doing the opposite side. Okay, I'll see you in a little bit.